Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
I'm hijacking this broadcast.
Mine says 1:15. I don't even know what's going on.
For anyone who's watching, they just are going to turn into like half-bearded men talking about nothing. So
this is a full beard. Thank you very much.
I'm about to celebrate because 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Yahtzee.
I've got 238 backers. We got an extra buck in the last little bit.
Right.
13,116.
Every dollar.
Okay, Gregory, now
backers.
Please take control of this meeting again.
I have taken control of this meeting. I hereby call this meeting of the Deadwork Collective to order to congratulate all of you on the fact that our collection of experimental comics is officially funded. And I just want to say to all of you, not just to the people who are watching, because I don't know how many there are, and maybe there's 2, and maybe there's 1,000, but maybe there's none. So to you guys who I can see, this campaign is the first time I've ever participated in a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign with this many people involved, where an impossible event occurred, where all the different pieces, disparate pieces that needed to happen were handed off to many different individuals who all did their job. I've been involved in lots of projects where people get part of a job handed to them, and it's like the old group work saying, right? I hope everyone who ever participated in group work is at my funeral to lower me into the ground so they can let me down one last time. This is the opposite of that thing, right? Where you guys just all came through in so many different ways, and I really appreciated it because I have been so busy this month. So the fact that I could just focus on my little piece and do that part while everyone else did their parts, you have my gratitude. This is what I'd like to say. Now, before I relinquish command of my tiny square on the internet here, I want to ask you guys to each in turn sum up your relationship to comics. Why do you make comics? Why don't you just give up? Why do comics keep coming back into your lives regardless of all these other things we have to do? And Jonathan, go.
I feel pretty new to comics, like The Eye Collector of Heavy Metal is my first comic that I ever wrote. And then in Dead Work is the other ones I've done. I don't know if I have a relationship with comics yet, other than, ever since I was a kid, when I picked up Sandman #6, which I'd seen comics before, but I'd never seen something like Sandman #6. And ever since I saw that issue, I just had it in my head, I got to do that, I didn't know how it was gonna happen exactly, but I've been trying to do something like Sandman #6 my whole career so far, and so to me, I don't even know what the reason is precisely, but there's just something about that alchemy of words and pictures, and that kind of the page turn, what you can do with the page turn, there's just something about the medium that I think is really interesting. I've been a bit too much of a control freak, I think, to get to it before now, but now that I've kind of gotten comfortable with relinquishing a level of control, but still having the ability to feeling confident enough I can do certain things, with the little control I have, it just is an interesting medium that I think has a lot of interesting alchemy available to an artist.
So in terms of relinquishing control, we have groups of writers and artists, or we have a group of writers and artists here. And for those who are new to understanding what comics are, often a writer comes in with a script and an illustrator comes in and tries to interpret that script, but that is just the simplest way to describe a very complicated interplay of bringing somebody's words to life visually. Why don't I pick on Steven, who's worked with a number of the writers in this collective here, to talk about the different ways in which you take words and turn them into pictures.
Well, there's a lot of ways, but I'll be honest, I really only do it one way. I just look at the script, I just draw. I don't know, turning words into pictures. It's an interesting question. I'm kind of rambling now.
For Lyndon, and you did it for Jordan. Did I miss anyone?
Jonathan.
Dirksen, yeah. He's working on that.
So, what was it like working for those? Like, everyone has a different voice, a different way of turning in a script, a different ask when the panels start coming in.
Well,
And just to be clear, you don't need to specify who your favorite is by any means.
I think you shouldn't.
You can.
Oh, we all know.
You can do that.
This
I
is
don't know
not
what your
funny.
secret
I
love
get
thing with
treated
Lyndon.
so well as an artist when a writer comes to me with a script, be it option A, option B, or option C. They go, how do you like your script to be? And I go, write your words, tell me what's on the panels, and I'll draw them. And if I don't like how you drew how you wrote out the panels, I'll just change them and I won't tell you. And that's just kind of how I do. I've found, now, be it a benefit of being an artist or just like, I don't know, the dynamic of, I'm newer to comics compared to, I mean, been doing this for a little while, but like, my experiences are slim, like 3 writers, right? And what I've found is we really figure out how that script is going to work and how I'm going to read it before they even write it. So it's like, it feels like people are like catering to what I need to make sure the art gets done the best and the fastest. And I would say I really appreciate that from the artists. I really appreciate these guys for doing that kind of work, because it helps me get my work done really fast and it helps me get my best work done. And then I get to feel the nuances of each writer in that kind of set of rules, and it's really cool.
So, Zach, you write your own work and you illustrate other people's work. Why don't you speak to that idea of when your best work is coming out? What are the different barriers between you and the work when it's your idea or when it's a writer's idea?
Yeah, I mean, Lyndon's going to laugh because I like having a script from someone else, but I don't heavily regard it necessarily. I like being told what to do, so I have a framework to not do that. It's nice to be like, well, I won't be doing that, but where am I going to go now? And it's nice to have somebody present a thing that I should be doing. Any of my teachers from any stage of school would probably have heard the same kind of thing. I like being told what to do so I can not do it. And that's very helpful to my artistic process, which is exceedingly frustrating to a writer, I believe.
I believe you're describing oppositional defiance.
It's one of my core personality things, unfortunately.
An enduring trait as an artist. But why don't you did a whole bunch of short, like very short but very different in flavor types of stories in this collection. How did this come about? Why did this happen? Why is there so much Zach in this collection? And how do we get more of it?
That's a great question. My 5 comics in the book, 4 of them are 4-page character intros to D&D characters. 1 written by Lyndon, 1 by my friend Josh Rose, and 2 by me. And then there's also a thread story, which is a continuation of my full-length graphic novel. So the 4 character intros, I think, were the interesting one, because they're the same idea of introducing a new D&D character, giving them a 4-page little splashy comic, and then 2 of them are written by me, 2 by friends, and they all turned out tonally quite different, even though they're the same idea. And I really think that I did a good job of like showing off the strengths of Lyndon's character in writing. That's a cool little twist on it's like a heist movie almost in 4 pages. Josh wrote a great little, like, I don't even know how to describe it, meditative little feel-good story about a barbarian somehow. Then I wrote 2 one goofy nonsense thing about my archaeologist and 1 anxiety-ridden kung fu expert thing. I don't know. They're all very, very different, but I had a lot of fun doing them, and it's kind of cool to see the different flavors that the writers baked into their stories and trying to bring that out.
And they got chocolate eruption, and they got apple, and they got grape. They got grape and super duper chocolate eruption, and what?
Jordan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like getting your words across to artists, and is there a moment where you open your inbox and you're not sure what has just come out?
Every moment in comics is that, I think, but I don't know. It sounds like there's like a negative connotation to that, like, oh, you're scared or nervous or something might be wrong with it, but that's not the case ever at all. Like, I'm always just so amped to see how it's different because it's always good. Right? The artist's interpretation of a page is always better than what I have in my non-artist brain. So I love it. I love it every time. Every artist I worked with. I worked with 3 different artists in this book, 2 of whom are sitting in this chat with us right here. Chris right above me, and Steven's over that way on my screen anyway. And yeah, with both of them, I just gave them, I don't know, like scripts, but I didn't know how good they were going to look at the end. You know, you don't know that as a writer, and then when they turn back those pages and they change your ideas, like Steven was saying, like, oh, maybe change a panel that they think is not working in their brain, and it turns out way better. I love it. I love telling stories with my friends. That's why I make comics, and that's what we did here. We all told stories with our friends together.
Chris, can you and Jordan tell me about how you come to the color choices in your story?
That's all Chris, 100%.
Okay, then Chris,
yes,
you're on the spot.
on it. Okay. I just do the same color scheme for a lot of comics. I just use split complementary, which I just think works. It gives you 3 colors, and then I just work within that. I decide one thing is props, one thing is backgrounds, one thing is characters, and then I sort of intermingle them. Although I didn't really do that for Night of the Hive, but it's just very strict color choices, and I just go with something that gives you multiple options, but is somewhat like closer knit than like if you're doing like a triad color scheme, but has more diversity than like an analogous color scheme. So I just stick with split complementary. This is kind of my go.
I think you stuck pretty closely on like the first draft of it, and then you sent it to me, and you were like, "Could I change some of the colors of the characters to increase the readability?" I was like, "Sure, whatever you think is best."
Yeah,
and you did. So like the colors on the characters kind of changed through the process of you making them, to help with like differentiating like every aspect of the panels, making it all more readable and more beautiful.
Is there an
What I really enjoyed about your paneling, Chris, is it's Night of the Hive, and it's like honeycomb paneling. It felt like,
yeah,
that was cool.
I totally went for that, especially on like I think it's page 3.
Page 3. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's literally just a hexagon in the middle of the page. I was like, why not?
Is there an interesting story about how you came across using this color method in comics? It's not very common in too many visual medium that I see, but I also usually pick a very limited palette, so I'd be curious to know as to your reasons for that. We could do a little comparison.
I think my okay, so the answer is 2-part. One, I believe in like setting rules for yourself as an artist and just sticking to them for the sake of consistency. And I guess another part of it is I like a lot of the aesthetics of like retro games from like the NES or the Game Boy Color, and those have very limited color palettes. You're usually a single sprite tile can only use 4 different colors in it. But also, it probably comes down to a mild lack of ability of rendering realistic colors and lighting. Like, if I just use a limited color palette, I can just like be safe and stick with these colors. Whereas instead of trying to figure out what like the reflected light looks like on the edge of this thing while it's in this kind of lighting, so. But that's
Which
my
stops you from thinking too
2 to
much.
3 part. Maybe a little bit, which is a problem I have.
Do you find, this is a sort of shout out to all the artists then, do you find that once those rules are in place that, I'll frame it as a statement. I find that when I have a certain number of rules in place, it allows me to relax a little bit and just lean into the process of making things because now I have rules to follow. Instead of there being any way to do it, I'm doing it this way, and so now I have some framework to work within and experiment with. Is that the same for all of for you guys, that you need to like set some rules for yourself before you can start on the page, or do you discover that along the way? I guess it's a folded question, and like, at what point do you know this is the style, this is the color, I'm ready to go? Chris is laughing because my question unfolded like origami.
I would say definitely. I like once those rules are in place, it's a little bit easier. The trick is finding out what those rules are for the different aspects of a given project, right? So like having the color thing decided makes that easy. But then like for Night of the Hive, I did maybe 2 or 3, even 4 different passes with how to do the line art because I couldn't figure that out, and then I eventually settled on it. But yeah.
I made a bunch of palettes back in ACAD that are just these grids that doesn't show up super well. But they're these grids of like full intensities in the middle row, and then steps of white going up and steps of black going down. And they're just like a grid of 2 colors and where they intersect in the middle and make a neutral kind of color. And I use those for almost everything. So instead of split complementary, they're not always complementary, but I just do 2 colors, usually a warm and a cool, and then the steps of gray in between them, and the steps of lighter and darker, the shades and tints, I guess. And those have gotten me very far. It's just nice to have, like, I pick 2 colors based on the mood of the comic I'm doing. Like when I colored Steven's book, I picked this orange and blue color palette I've beat to death over my career, because it fit the kind of spooky Halloween vibes of this cool bar and the werewolf and vampire thing going on. These purples and oranges kind of really worked well together for that. So I picked 2 colors based on the mood and then stick to mostly that. Every now and then you have to fudge a color a little bit and add something else, but 2-tone palettes seem to work for me. I studied Lee Lowridge and Matt Hollingsworth, was it? Yeah, those 2 are my favorite colorists, I'd say. And
Hollingsworth is such a good colorist.
Yeah, the 2 of them are they do all the flat color books like Deadly Class and like Hawkeye. Those are the 2 who do like that 2-tone or limited palette flat coloring stuff that I just like on David Aja's work and Wes Craig, I guess. That's my favorite thing. So I try to do a lot of that. The odd gradient to help push dimensions in comics, but I try to do a lot of flat color stuff because it just looks so good when you have a limited palette like that. And those 2 are the best. I got off topic, but I stand by it.
Well, you're on topic. I'm going to bring us around to Lyndon in a minute, but I want to hear from Steve on this topic.
Yeah, with colors, I don't make a lot of choices. I tend to look at like a type of film that I like the color scheme on, and then I try to recreate that, but while at the same time trying to keep it as tight as possible because I kind of idolize Zach's colors and try to keep like a tight color scheme. But it can be difficult when I'm like, I have all these different characters and I'm trying to keep certain things consistent from page to page as the scenes change. So there'll be certain anchor colors and then I kind of like pull in one direction or the other. And I don't really make decisions on the spot. I'll like go until it looks correct. So I'll change sliders and I'll like select every one color and adjust the hue and saturation and stuff like that. But I don't make a lot of rules. I just do my best to create a mood and keep it as simple as possible. And sometimes the simple part doesn't always come through, but I try to create that mood with the colors, so it just sometimes takes a little bit of extra time.
Because it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
Okay, so pivoting back around to some stuff we were talking about before, Lyndon, why don't you tell me your relationship to comics? How did you get into this crazy game? And where do you get off both writing and lettering comics? How dare you?
First, the answer to your first question is 2-pronged. I got into comics because I went to law school. It's just the short answer of that question. I love comics because of the community that comes along with it and the aspect of teamwork. I've dabbled in prose, but there's so much. It's so different than working in comics and being accountable to another person or a team of people, and the sorts of incredible ideas that you can produce when it's more than one mind coming up with those ideas. And I'm continuously amazed by the result of mixing my ideas with someone else's ideas. Lettering, I letter because I don't think that this is going to, I don't want to be like rude in this, but when Stephen and I were working on our first book and I was just the writer, I looked at the time commitment of being a writer versus being an artist and thought, I need to pull my weight in this relationship, and being a writer is not enough to do that. So I decided that I was going to learn to letter also. And, I joke about this quite often in that anyone online right now tells you if you want to make a professional looking comic book, hire a professional letterer, otherwise it's going to look bad. And in most cases, I'd say they're probably right, and maybe I should have listened, but I didn't listen. And so I lettered Infinite Universe, our first book, probably 3 or 4 times all the way through the book to get it to a point where it was, technically sound, if not, as stylistically, precise as I am now, or a little more refined as I am now. But the answer to the question is simply I wanted to do more in that role as a team player, and I found that being a writer, in my opinion, just wasn't enough to satisfy me.
I find that I am, just on this particular point, when I would letter my own work, I would constantly catch myself rewriting without consideration right into the bubble. I'd be working from a script, or I'd have it laid out, and then I would have illustrated everything and be working to a precise measure, and then I'd be like, oh, maybe it should say this now that I'm lettering it. And sometimes that effect was wonderful. You'd have this moment of inspiration that really lifted up the whole work, but sometimes I would cut off my own nose despite my face trying to be clever in the moment just before it went off to print.
It's so nice to be able to take out that one word that makes the balloon actually fit. That's so nice. And you can't do that with somebody else's words. It's nice to do your own stuff because you're like, this word is out, and I just save myself a whole lot of headache.
Lyndon, you can do that with my words.
To play into something that Jonathan said earlier, and that was the aspect of control. I really appreciate that, it's my hands that are on the product. Mine are the last hands on the page before it gets finalized. And in that, it's really nice to be able to pivot and change things as you need to better suit the art. I'm sure you've said it before, Gregory. I know many professionals have said it before, but the act of working in comics is I don't know if I can call it like a dance, but essentially, if you're not revising your script based on what the art looks like, then you're skipping a very important step of the comics making process. And so as the letterer, I'm able to go in and do that and not have to create a second or third draft of a script that I then have to send to a letterer to make any changes or to change anything. I can make any changes on the fly, sort of as I'm in the flow of putting the comic together. And it's just an aspect of making comics that I feel really lucky that I'm able to do, because I understand not everyone has the time to learn how to letter their own stuff.
No, I saw Jonathan get really excited there. I think he has some things to say. And I know because he works with me, I always send him curveballs in the art. So he's constantly having to rewrite things.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go back to something Jordan was saying, is in the same vein, which is, what one thing I realized kind of as he was talking about this idea with, the art coming and, it's that moment, when you kind of open it up and so on. One thing I realized with my own books early on was that I didn't want people just to read them. I wanted them to do things with them, and so I designed my first book, Ex Machina, to be like this book you had to construct yourself almost and so on. And my Clockfire was like this plays you can't produce. It was like a challenge to like find a way to produce them, And I got really excited. Like I know some of you, Zach, went to ACAD. Like they used to teach my book at ACAD at one point, and like students would do these cool projects based on it, and I get to see them and stuff. And what I really liked, it was designing a book that then a reader could take and could build something of their own with, the materials in the book almost. But the problem with that process is, it may or may not happen that a reader is moved in that way, or maybe they'll do it. I won't even get to see it. What I like about comics is it kind of like pulls that person building something out of your work into the process, So like Gregory, like when I give you a script or something, like I kind of get to see you make your own thing with that while in the process of making the book, as opposed to like maybe a reader will do it later,
And I'll say this about you, Jonathan. I send you more work in process, like panels as they're coming together and things like that, than I do almost anyone that I would collaborate with or have collaborated with. Because most people, when they see it malformed, will give input, whereas you tend to only give input when I say, and okay, I think I'm done. Then you'll give input.
Yeah, I just assume that anything you send me, you're still working on, and I don't even see the relevance of my input. I mean, maybe it's a bad way to think because it probably would be more helpful to get input in the process. But to me, it's like, why give you input? You're not even done it.
Yeah, there were times when I was sending you some pages for She-Wolf, and you were quick to point out. You were slow to point out something I should have been quick to see, is that the character had crept off model. That she had taken on some different features, just because I was sort of caught up in the making of the pages, and I'd sort of lost some essential profile elements of the character. And you're like, okay, is that even the same person? I don't think it is. And I'd be like, yeah, of course. You're like, well, maybe you should double check, line them up together. You may find that they're not. And you can get swept up as an artist in your own fervor of creation. And it is good to have a collaborator who is watching from a more sober position and just saying, oh, we had a plan, and it's nice to wend our way. We're taking a different path to that destination. Okay, that's fine, but recognize it has these results.
But for the most part, when you send me something, I just see it as like, well, it's not my job to draw it. So like, why should I comment on it? You know what I mean? But I guess what you're saying is that's not normal. People tend to get into the mix with that.
Very much so, yeah, very much so. So it depends on. It depends. You pick your collaborators, and you stick with people who you find it easy to work with.
The next comic I did after working on Youth Eye Collector, Gregory, was Dirk Dirksen with Steven. And what was interesting about that was at one point, so I give him a script and everything, right? And Steven gives me like these, what do you call them? Like pencils, like sketches and thumbnails.
Oh, yeah.
So he gives me thumbnails. He's like, yeah, what do you think of these? I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, I don't think anything about it. What is this? I was like, yeah, I don't know. It looks good. I'm like, what's a thumbnail? I had to like ask Lyndon, like, what's this thumbnail? Why is Steven showing me this?
Why is Steven?
But it was really cool. I liked it, but I was like, what am I supposed to do something with this? Like, I'm just I feel like I'm so new to comics. Like I understand like the thumbnails would be a thing somebody would see, but I don't know what would my feedback be? Like, I don't really even know, because to me it's just like, it's another like obviously Steve will know better than I do what the thumbnail should look like, what the thing should look like. What am I supposed to tell him? But maybe it's like useful to get like a certain type of feedback. I don't know.
Well, I find that my editorial feedback I receive on thumbnails is usually related to the effectiveness of the page turn.
Sure.
But that's really what you're trying to set up. You're trying to set up the architecture of the story and where it's going to land on the page turn. In mass market comics, that can be totally blown up by the fact that there's ad placement you have no control over. But in the indie space, you have a lot more control over exactly the architecture of the book. And so that's where that thumbnail comes in. Or the stuff I did with Gillian Horton, I would send her roughed up pages because there was some very precise medical language that was going to be accompanying each of those pages. We did a book called Medicine, which was about the real emotional cost of a life working in medicine. And so it wasn't just about whether or not the art could run away with the story. There were some very precise beats. So thumbnailing is a great process if there are some immutable pieces, some things that you're just not allowed to change.
Yeah, that's something I've learned with thumbnailing is you initially learn like that, oh, you need to do thumbnailing, like all the big three, or at least Marvel and DC, I would assume want you to submit thumbnails, then submit this, or at least that's how I think I understand it. But I've learned that thumbnails, like over the time of doing this, I've learned that thumbnails, they just help me, design the page. And maybe nobody ever has to see them. Like Jonathan said, probably didn't even matter, right? But for me, it helps me design the page. Like you said, the page turn as well. So in the indie space, at least, it helps with directing the book.
Speaking of thumbnails and particularly the page turn, I am interested in this topic with actually all the writers and the artists here. How do you feel about scene changes that are not on the page turn?
What do you mean? Be more specific.
Some writers like to build their books or their layouts so that the page turn signifies the change of like a location change or a scene change, and some don't. They'll just they'll do the scene change on the odd numbered page instead of the even numbered page. And I'm just interested in what everyone's views are on that decision.
Ooh, I saw Chris have a deep, ponderous expression. I want to hear from him first.
It was mostly, I don't have enough experience to have an opinion on this kind of expression. I'm like, do I know enough about making comics to say definitively if I have like any thoughts on it, right? Like anything worth saying. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it necessarily matters. I actually think it might be jarring for people if you think about it, where it's like, unless you frame it properly in the page going into the panel going into the page turn, if you suddenly turn a panel and you're now in a different location, the reader might be like off-put slightly. But if it's a transition on the same page, it's less shocking, I guess.
Yeah, an ensemble cast can handle a page turn as a location change a lot easier than a streamlined narrative. I think that's for sure true.
Yeah, like if you're jumping between characters' point of view in different areas, yeah. But like, let's say you've got a story and the character's going from point A to point B, and if that panel before that page turn doesn't indicate that we're going to be in a different location at some point, the reader might turn the page and be like, did I miss something? They might get confused.
Check if their pages are stuck together.
I once read an interview with Tom King, and he talked about when he first started doing comics, he was very fixated on the idea of doing scene changes on page turns because the 2-page spread can act as sort of an insulated scene or an insulated beat. And then he said he got to a certain point where it didn't matter anymore. He reached a point in his writing where he could make that transition in the middle of the 2-page spread and it still worked. And I just wondered if anyone had any strong opinion for or against that sort of practice. That's sort of a niche comment, but we're here.
My last several books have been without any kind of bleed over to the next page, so no 2-page spreads. I keep everything like kind of as a 1-page basis. And I think I want to start focusing more on that page turn as an interactive element of like, it's a whole new thing you're switching to. So I like that idea. I haven't really used it. Like I haven't thought about it when I'm making my comics to this point, because I'm usually trying to print on the cheap, which means no bleeds. And so I kind of treat every page like its own thing, which means that when it comes time to make the book, you can play around a lot and just put stuff wherever. So I'd like to do a project with a lot of bleeds and spreads, and I think it matters more when you deliberately think about it like that. But as for now, I've just been doing, this page is like I do a page in a day, and that's my day's work, and that page in my mind is kind of a more separate thing. But it seems fun to play with, so I think it'd be good to try both.
It's okay, Zach. We'll put together a much larger book that involves page turns and
That
full
would be
scenes.
swell. We should get some kind of giant government grant to help cover my expenses in the meantime, though.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
I want to know what Steven's laughing at.
I just thought it was funny, and I was going to say something, but I have my audio coming back through my headphones so that this stream works, and I have to pick when I talk carefully because it just drives me crazy. But Lyndon, could you clarify? Are you talking about doing like a scene change from like bottom right of one page up to like the next page instead of on a page turn, like the reveal on the opposing page?
Well, it's not necessarily always a reveal, but a scene change in particular. So you and I just did issue 2 of The Laundryman, which we're working on, and I know that for a fact that in that book, the scene change from the night in the barn to the diner is not on a page turn, and that's because the rest of the pacing of the scenes surrounding that scene change were such that I needed to prioritize those page turns and those reveals rather than have to stretch out a short moment into a double page spread just so that I could get a scene change on a page turn. And I just wondered.
Opinion on that, then.
Nope, please.
I think it's great. I always bring a lot of my thinking with comics back to how movies work, and I'm not a filmmaker. I just watch a lot of movies. But like you can have, even though we're going from like outside in the dark to like inside in the daytime, it's still like you can use the opposing page like a non-page turn scene change because it'll feel like a George Lucas wipe. It's just a nice soft scene change. It's inconsequential. We're just moving the story along, and I think you can do that because you're all the way down here at the bottom of the page, and then you're going all the way up. So like there is that brief moment where you're not focused on anything, so you still have at least that nice change. Whereas you can reserve those page turns for like we'll stick with Star Wars, where you go from like say the conversation between Luke and Vader in Jedi, and then we swap, and it's the space battle. That's what the page turn's for. So you can do softer switches, and I don't have any problems with it. You're very good at planning that on the script too, and so I don't even think about it. I'm just like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it really depends on whether or not you have foreknowledge of how much control you have of the actual layout. Like when I was doing stuff with Kevin Anderson for the Clockwork Lives graphic novel, there's an anthology similar to ours in that it was a huge number of artists in different styles writing short chapters of a very big collection. I had no knowledge of where I would land in the overall collection, whether my page 1 was going to be a facing page or a turned page. I didn't know. So I had to construct each one as if it kind of stood on its own and had a payoff that just led to the first panel. And often, if you're doing short works, you don't know. You won't know, and it won't be up to you. And we had the luxury of having Adam, our editor, give us a little input in that layout choice, which probably drove him crazy because I put some notes in my submission like this must be a facing page, this must be a 2-page spread, or I'm out taking my toys and I'm going home. Right.
Well, I remember I was talking to him as he was putting together the layout, and he was asking just for like some general advice on how he should approach it, and it was basically like it became a puzzle, right? Because I was like, well, odd numbered page, or like most comics prefer to start on the odd numbered page. We have a couple of comics that are evenly numbered, so they probably need to go back to back. Because then if you start them on an odd numbered page, then they'll end on an odd numbered page. And you can flow into the rest of the comics. And thankfully, Gregory, you had provided a comic that not only worked really well to open the book, but was 3 pages, meaning that it ended on an even numbered page and we could start all the rest of the preceding comics on the odd numbered page, which is the intention of most comic writers.
It's funny because that one I was convinced would be cut. I thought that one was like the strangest, weirdest little short, like
It's
gag.
for sure my favorite one in the whole book.
I was like, they're going to cut this one for sure, but I'm going to submit it, and I hope the editor likes it. And then it turned into the mascot, essentially, for the whole thing.
It's a great tone-setting comic.
It is. And yeah, the mascot thing, he looks so good in all the ads. Like, it's so intriguing and weird to see the creepy face and the crow on his head saying something. Like, everything about that was so good for the ads, I think. Because we're saying 22 weird comics, and there's the weirdest dude you've ever seen.
Okay, come here and make me feel like a woman. Come on, give me a nice wet licorice kiss.
Well, it's funny too, right? That method of the exquisite corpse, for anyone watching that doesn't know, is a way where an artist draws part of the drawing, hands it to another artist, they do another thing. And so this character is called the Exquisite Corpse, so I wanted to include him because I felt like our whole book was kind of like that.
Absolutely. No, it's a good tone setter. Adam is a visionary.
I had a lot of fun seeing Justin's updated artwork for our little story. We had done that one a good while back for a charity, and we just really liked it, but we had no place else to put it. And there's this weird thing that goes on where a lot of people who want original content, they want to be the first one to get it into print. And so a weird miasma hangs over work that printed somewhere else, even though in our case it was for a charity, like a children's charity, but that was withholding it from being published in other places. And so the fact that we could just take control of that thing that we owned and put it in a book, that was really really gratifying. And Justin played around with some amazing, he usually does very clean vector illustrations, and he played with textures in this one and noise in a way that he normally doesn't. So he got to go back to existing artwork and experiment with some final outputs, which was, for me, really exciting to see. Talking, like we were saying, Jordan, about stuff showing up in your inbox, and it's like, oh, not what I expected, but so much better than I imagined.
It's amazing.
Yeah, such a great thing to do. So our book is going to be real, gentlemen. How does that make you feel?
Weird.
I guess
Our
me
book
and
was
Gregory
always
are the only
real.
two people who have fondled it in person. The proofs I got, at least. I
That's
mailed
true.
Gregory a copy a while back, and we've both gotten to sniff that heady vapor of a new book. And
The new book feeling of opening a new book, even if it is, as it's called in the business, a dummy book, right? Just a one-off, so that you get later.
I want the play-by-play on Gregory, you receiving that, because you didn't know it was coming, right? I gave Zach your address.
Correct. Contrary to my explicit instructions that you should never let anyone know where I live.
actually, you sent me a thing a while ago, and I just threw it out, like the packaging at least. So I should have had your address. I just don't write things down.
Yeah, I'm just being silly.
Gregory, I
So
knew
I-
this was a good exception to make.
I had ordered the, what was it, Unpossible Beast, something, Jonah and the Unpossible.
John and the Unpossible. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Chris Samney.
So I actually thought that's what had arrived. So I was like, ooh, my book is here. And I opened it. And for a brief moment, I said, what the hell is this? Oh, this is from Zach. Wait, this is our book. How is this possible? How am I holding our book? We haven't printed it yet. So it was a nice little twisteroo in my mind. But there's nothing more exciting than that potential of where it can go after that. Once you're holding that book and the work is done and the copy is arranged and you know that everything else is just academic now. Print it, put it in people's hands. It gives you such confidence to go on and say, okay, the work I'm doing now that I don't know what it'll be for has a purpose. I don't maybe know it now, but there is a future for all of these weird little disparate things that you create just in order to be creative. Why don't we take a minute and talk about what everyone's working on right now? Maybe not right this second, but...
I just texted Riley because I forgot. He was supposed to blurb our book so we can send it off to the printer, and I forgot to harass him. So I just did. Riley Rossmo, international man of mystery and Batman
No big
artist.
deal.
And thanks to Riley Rossmo. I'm
Hasn't
gonna
done
have
it yet.
to.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to bail out on you guys in a minute for my own,
Are you putting
shameful
family first
reasons.
too?
Unfortunately, I
Sure.
have to shamefully put family first. But
then before
I'll
you
answer
leave, you
Gregory's
have to-
question first,
Yes.
which is with Gregory, I'm working on more Eye Collector. So we're very excited about doing that. So Gregory has done the art for issue 6. I am rewriting text for issue 6. We had kind of broken the story and kind of storyboarded it out together.
Standalone issue, a single, complete, delicious meal.
So a single, complete, standalone Eye Collector story before another Eye Collector story arc. And so I'm kind of the holdup on the project right now, and I'm just kind of writing to the images, like based on what we had agreed I would write. I'm just kind of finalizing the text and then handing off to Lyndon there, who's going to do the lettering on it. So it's my big project at the moment. Yeah, I'm keen on it.
It's probably my first project where because I have such a developed relationship with the letterer, I really thought about you often, Lyndon, where I was like, oh yeah, right. Yeah, Lyndon will letter it in this way. I have to make sure this negative space exists. I have to think about that. And that was interesting for me, to have the team be the same team. Changed some of my layouts. I was sort of disregarding whatever Jonathan might be saying on that page, but I was making sure there was room for you to put it there.
There's room for him to say it. Yeah.
That's right. Room for him to say it. For sure. I know all of you have different projects, so don't be shy. Just jump in. Or would you like me to tag you in?
Well, I can jump in because I have a book with Lyndon, a big full-length book that I'm working on as of next week when things calm down from this whole nightmare. And I'm working on a book with Gregory Chimichuk of Eye Collector fame. So we're working on that. I want to get back to that. And Jordan and I are talking about an upcoming project potentially. And is that all the writers? No, Jonathan and I are talking about a project. So 2 in progress, 2 hypothetical future foibles. It'll be good. That's everybody then. Is that a complete set? No, I haven't gotten Chris art on something. I think I've worked with everybody else in the Dead Work Collective then. Once I
You
get
need Chris to write you some D&D.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll
Or
collaborate
my
with
short
everybody.
story.
All the Dead Work. And if we make a
Right
volume
now
2
I'm
of Dead
working
Work, it
on,
won't be any Dead Work. It'll be all
Laundryman
alive work.
issue 2. No, I just finished Laundryman issue 2. Working on Laundryman
Finished
issue
2, I
3.
thought.
And I've just got this train of comics that I have to do that are they're all right here right now. And so Laundryman issue 2, issue 3, then we're going to have Dirks, and we're going to finish issue 1. Then we got There Was Another Life. It's just wonderful. It's just a great time for always a great time for comics, great time for Steven and comics. So it's good.
And a shout out to Lyndon for finding money for all of those somehow. Man pulls grants out of thin air.
Those
think
are all
he's actually
under
in-
my name. I got those grants.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Lyndon's garbage. Steven's where it's at.
No,
Sorry,
you know
what
what?
has Lyndon done
Quick
for anybody
throwback
lately?
to something.
Yeah, I told Lyndon how to
said
write a
earlier, where
grant.
He's like, oh, I wanted to letter to like share the load and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does other things too. He's basically my manager, and I think everybody else who has done work with him would know him. He'd be
He has
a
a
great
full-time
manager.
That's the
job
reason I
harassing
hired
me.
you, yeah.
So, like, I don't know how he finds
more
time for
love.
anything else. I'm such a diva. Oh, we're
Look at
making
you
him
right in the
blush.
center, Lyndon, of the whole thing.
Yeah, okay,
In the
so
center of
I'm
my
not even trying to
screen.
make you blush. It's just
Yeah,
your
mine too.
job.
one of the things that my fiance knows about me is that I'm not great at always taking compliments. But, one of my joys in comics over the last little while has been that I've been fortunate enough to find some funding for the artists that I work with. And that really means a lot to me because at some point or another prior to this, all the artists here have taken a chance on me. And it makes me feel really good that I can sort of return that in a monetary fashion. So right now, yeah, Zach and I are going to be working on a full-length book It's been picked up by a publisher. We've been lucky enough to get some grant funding for it. Steven and I are working on 2 books. Both have got some grant funding for them. One of them has currently been picked up by a publisher. Chris and I are slowly working on a book. I'm trying to find some funding for him, and then we'll worry about a publisher. But we're also working on a short comic right now together too. And obviously I get to work on more Eye Collector with Jonathan and Gregory, which I'm very excited about. And I am hoping that when Jordan is ready for another full book, that he will need a letterer, and I will be able to work with him again too. So it is.
And I found you that big lettering thing to letter a lot of books.
Yeah, we're not. That hasn't started yet. I'm not. That's not on my slate yet, as far as in progress projects go.
2 weeks away.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
That leaves you and I,
yes.
Chris.
Okay, I'll go now because I have to leave in 10 minutes for D&D. I've got a project with Lyndon, which is a fairly big comic, and maybe we lost someone.
Yeah, Jonathan had to go.
Oh, he's leaving. That was the wave. Okay. A big project with Lyndon, but potentially maybe it was too big for me. I said, make a comic as long as you want. And maybe it was a horrible mistake on my part because I see a page count and I'm like, ooh. Overwhelmed is, I guess, the term I would use. And then we've got a short. It's like was it 10 pages? 8 pages?
10 pages.
10 pages that we're working on. And then I've got another short with Jordan, which, based on the script, is probably not going to be applicable for the the contest that is going into. It's a little more risque.
Maybe.
I mean, they said PG-13.
That's up to you. You're the artist, so I mean.
Look, I'm going to draw the things in the panels you told me to draw, and if I draw those things,
you're drawing all the dicks that I told you to draw in that comic.
Yes.
Clean for
so
14, maybe.
And then
I just said the word. It's not. I'm not showing anything.
Jordan and I also have another comic in very early pre-production, I would say. Still in semi-concept phase. Like, we have the general idea, but we haven't really hammered out much besides. Like, you wanted to do a few more drafts on just the outline.
Yeah, I'm not loving where I have it right now, so
yeah,
that's on me.
And then I get bored when I'm at work, so I write on my phone, and I have a few solo projects that I have written up out of result of that. But I'm not going to go into those because if I speak about projects before I start them, they won't happen.
Ah, yes, the curse. I know that curse well.
Yeah.
I know that curse well. Yeah.
And Jordan.
That leaves me, and I don't have much of an answer beyond that. I have sent Chris 100 different ideas where I'm like, let's do this, and let's do this, and this other weird thing. Because Chris makes super weird art, and I just want to write super weird stories. So I'm just pushing the limits and seeing how far before he says, you've gone too far. So
there's no such thing.
That hasn't happened yet.
We could work on our things too.
I thought the one that you're talking about, which you say is probably pushing too far to make it into the anthology we're trying to get it into.
Yeah.
I sent you that first draft.
Yeah.
And I really thought I thought I went way overboard. And you were like, oh, no, nothing in this is weird. Everything's fine. And I was like, let me do a second draft. And the second draft, you're still like, yeah, everything's fine. So maybe I'll do a third draft. Who knows?
More Richard.
Yeah, but I'm just sending him all these ideas. If Steven ever becomes free from Lyndon's monetary shackles,
whoops,
maybe one day we'll get to do something a little longer. And obviously, I'm looking forward to the other super secret thing that Zach and I were talking about. But that's about it. I just want to work with the 3 artists who are sitting here. Well, I forgot Gregory. Who I do definitely know about as well, but
3.5 artists.
That might be a little longer down the line. And as Lyndon suggested, yeah, I'm going to need letterer on everything. So,
yeah,
this is how I secure my future. Is I surround myself with other people who need my work.
The scripts that Jordan has sent me, it says
Actually, yes, the experimental one was silent, unlettered comic.
Yeah, but then the other one we're working on that's like still in the pre-production phase. It's like author Jordan, art by Chris, letters probably Lyndon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
That's
that
right.
for Night of the Hive and for Vertilac,
Yeah.
my two of the shorts in this too. I wrote in like lettering probably by Lyndon, I assume.
Yeah,
I assume at
you
this point, too.
You do a good job, and you're available for us. So
Yeah.
And it's no fun to letter books, so
I've tried
keep
and failed
yourself.
horribly.
I like lettering books. I'm just not I don't have a precise enough mindset to land it properly every time. It's requires such care and deliberation to do it well.
Yep.
So when I'm in the right mood, I like lettering short comics, like 4 or 5 little page things. I love doing the word balloons and building that all out for something short. But I have 3 full-length graphic novels right now that 2 of them need a letterer. One of them you already lettered 4 out of 5 parts of it, Lyndon, anyway. So part 5 is coming your way.
Wonderful. See, this is how I sustain my life. With word
I am
balloons.
going to pass the torch of this stream conversation leading over to Zach now. Zach, it's your job to wrangle
Back
these
off the
monsters.
rails.
I must sign off because I too have family responsibilities that I must go to. But I really enjoyed making this book with you guys. I really enjoyed seeing it come together and launching this Kickstarter, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So I can't wait for Dead Work 2.
Yeah, let's do it again.
We don't talk about Dead Work 2.
not yet.
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah.
my heart.
We need some actual dead work.
Yeah.
Pulp Science Anthology. All right, this is Gregory signing off. Thanks so much for having me in the stream.
Well, he was a very good MC, and now I'm going to go back to just goofing off.